The strategy for D-Day was to take the draws, the roads leading up from the beaches. Once you got these captured, you can start bringing your armor, your vehicles, everything, get your army moving. The problem was the Germans knew this too, and basically had them blocked off with cement walls. And it also put all their best defenses on the draws, all the big bunkers, the heavy machine gun areas. If you'll notice, this is angled triangle. It's not flat facing the beach, it's at an angle, so that when the Germans fired out, they were going to cover more of the beach instead of just firing straight out to the water. You're definitely going to hit something. The plan was to have a line of bombers come through, drop ordnance on the front lines of the Germans, then have a naval bombardment, and then you were going to have all your ships come in a straight line with tanks just right up in front of them, and so you'd have this big sweep onto the shore, and they were going to be immediately followed with duck, which are amphibious trucks filled with artillery. Well, because of the bad weather, the bombers missed their targets, as a lot of you well know. The tanks sank. I think there were about 58. I think 4 of them actually made it here, and they stayed in the water at the water's edge, and because they could not go anywhere, they just kept rolling back and forth, trying to put as much fire on the beach as they could. And finally, because of the bad weather, the ships were coming in uneven. And so the first company that lands is going to be Company A, which lands right out here all by itself. The British seamen who operated the LCA that they all came out of said you could hear the water flapping. It was so quiet when he pulled them up. And they ran onto the beach, and they flopped themselves down, and he was turning the ship around, heading back out, and he said he could just hear all this fire. They don't know who the first soldier was of the 29th Company A. They think it was Captain Fellers, who actually pulled himself out of the hospital in England to be with his troops for this invasion. One Lieutenant Terrick tried to make it forward, and he was wounded, and he turned back to the troops and he said, "Advance the wire cutters." And one of the guys said, "We don't know what he was talking about. We didn't have any wire cutters to begin with." And by saying that, he pointed himself out as an officer, and the Germans immediately cut him in half with machine gun fire. What the guys of the 29th and the 1st Infantry start to realize is it's no use going for these roads here. They're too well defended. So what they start doing is spreading out and trying to come around the sides. They realize these ridges are mined, but they're not as well protected. And so that is basically the strategy they come up with in the middle of the battle, while they're under fire. During this time, Norm Coda, the Assistant Division Commander, lands. He's got that famous line from, was it The Longest Day? But basically he tells them to follow him. Some Rangers do come up, and what happens is they make their way over these ridges, go behind the German line and start capturing the Germans, and moving down this draw right here. Omar Bradley's staff sees this and thinks the Germans are reinforcing the area. They don't realize that is their own troops that are making so much progress, and it's because of that he shuts down Omaha Beach for about 4 or 5 hours when they were at their weakest. One soldier with the 1st Infantry Division said when he came ashore, he basically floated in from about a half-mile out, and he said, "Boy, if one German company of soldiers just came down and shot everybody, they would have won the day." That was his point of view. He said we were so so raggedy by the time we came ashore. A lot of guys had flotation devices on that would wrap around your hips, but a lot of times when they would ignite them and inflate them, they'd pop right off. So basically you're looking at a tough slaughter, but that under fire the Americans eventually do figure out how to win this battle and sort of do a double envelope to make it down to the beach.